Red light, I don't know. Right, this morning we're going to talk about selling without bribing in China. I mean, sometimes this can be an oxymoron. How can you sell without bribing in a country known for corruption? Well, the truth is, China isn't quite the most corrupted country in the world, not by a lot. But nevertheless, we still get a lot of news about corrupted officials, and more recently, news of GSK being under investigation for bribing their customers, and not only that, some of the pharmaceutical companies as well that are under investigation. People like Eli Lilly, people like Sanofi. These are also companies that are currently under investigation. So, which brings to the point: is it possible to sell without bribing in China? And if it is indeed possible, how difficult it is to sell without bribing in China. The key thing is, we have seen a number of salespeople who have been given bribes. We have also, on the other hand, seen salespeople who have also met the sales targets without giving bribes or anything that's illegal, kickbacks or whatever. It is definitely possible, but how difficult can it be? So for here, what we want to do is to look into 4 areas. Number one, let's make a case about bribing. Let's imagine for a while that if bribing is going to be legal, it's going to be okay to bribe. Why is it bad for business, even if bribing is going to be legal? Number two, we're going to look into what are steps that management can do to help stamp out bribery in companies in China. 3, we're going to look into what salespeople can do, because the conflict between the sales department and the compliance or legal department within companies is this: the compliance departments, they will go to the sales department and say, you cannot do this, you cannot bribe customers, you cannot buy them dinners, you cannot give them gifts, and so on. But they don't give a solution to salespeople what they can do to get around with those customers or handle illegitimate customer requests. Salespeople need to know how to defend themselves and get around things and sell when they're facing corrupted customers without giving in to them. Last but not least, we have how management and salespeople can work together and craft a sales strategy, a whole new sales strategy that will help both management and sales sell in a clean way. And the reason for that is this: it's not going to be an easy path. Selling clean, if there are already cases of bribery in a company right now, you're going to turn yourself clean, you may need to work on some of your top salespeople. They may leave, or you may even not want to ask them to leave. Some of your customers, if they are the ones that are really corrupted, you may have to give them up. So you may actually, in the short term, face a situation that you will actually have a shortfall of sales targets, at least in the short term. So these are 4 things that we want to target at the moment for this morning. So the first one, the business case. Why is it bad for business to bribe, even if bribing is going to be legal? So for the sake of discussion, let's just imagine for a while that bribing customers is legal. Just for the sake of discussion, we'll see how this conversation can go into. Now, why is it bad to bribe customers? Number one, bribing does not set you apart from your competitors, does not differentiate you. Now, if you look into companies to say why they need to bribe their customers, the common theme, the common reason saying that our products are not very differentiated. Whatever we provide, our competitors can also provide. So we need to give the customers some goodies, some kickbacks, some nice things, so that they will buy from us. Now that on the surface sounds very logical, but if you are able to bribe your customer, so can your competitors. There's nothing unique about that. It does not differentiate yourself from your competitors. Also, if we were to look at the figures or the size of deals, if it's for large-scale project-based deal, what happens is that the different bidders, the different suppliers are chosen not because of price, because different suppliers can have different strengths. So finally, the guys who are being chosen can be more expensive than the lowest bidder. That's for big projects. In that sense, probably the bribes that go into the project sales may be covered under the cost, but those are the minority of sales bribery. The majority of sales bribery comes where deals are less than 1 million RMB. Deals are small. They are day-to-day purchasing of regular machinery, equipment, raw materials, parts, and so on. These are an ongoing thing that is not really constituting to large projects. And when such cases happen, right, we've got scenarios where some salespeople claim to have very good currency with some customers because, well, they have been buying lavish lunches, dinners, KTVs for these customers, and they know they are in the business for sure. But what happens is that the customers squeeze them for price. Despite all the bribing, which adds up all the costs, they still have to sell at a lower price than other competitors. At best, the bribes they're given only give them the information of how to price. But the bribes themselves are not a differentiator. In this particular case, the price is the differentiator, and we're not advocating even to sell at price. What we are saying here is that the bribing itself does not set you apart from your competitors. Doesn't mean that because you bribe, your customers are going to see you differently. It doesn't work at all. Number two, bribing is expensive. Not only is bribing expensive, not only you need to spend a lot of money buying lavish lunches and dinners and give kickbacks and all that, not only is it expensive, the returns on bribery is diminishing very quickly. You get less of a favors from the amount of money you spend. In the old days, probably 2 cartons of Zhonghua cigarettes is going to do the job it's going to do a lot of give you a lot of knowledge. But today, a lot needs to be done for very little favors. It's expensive and it's diminishing returns. The third part is it's definitely bad for branding. You can have a great product, great service, great people in your company, but if the outside world, if people outside the company know that you got your business through bribing, it's gonna paint you a very negative picture. You earn your money in not so much a legitimate ways, even if bribing, as imagined, could be illegal. Even if that's the case, it's still bad for bribing. You did not earn your business. You went to a different way and bribed a way to get the business. It's bad for a brand. And last but not least, you risk insulting your customer. 马屁拍到马蹄上. Why is that so? Because not every customer expects a bribe. Not every customer wants a bribe. And for 2 reasons. One, some people are, well, more morally inclined than others. They will say that it's improper to accept a bribe. It's a moral reason. Some other people think that it's bad for their career paths. What if their colleagues, their bosses, or their future bosses know that they have been taking bribes? Even if it's legal, they could be viewed negatively within their own company, and it could derail their personal career development. So it doesn't mean that if you give bribes, people will take it readily. There will be customers who will reject the idea of bribe. There will be customers who will think that it's going to be an insult. The next part we're going to look into what are steps that management can do, and what we want to say is this: bribing in sales is not an individual thing. Bribing in sales in a lot of companies sometimes can be systemic, sometimes can be chronic, and management has to step in. Why should management care? Why should management step in? Why can't just management pretend that it's some rogue salespeople who are doing the illegal things, and if they are caught, they will be fired? Why can't management just do that? For one, in the case of GSK, their salespeople did a bribe. The management got arrested. The management got investigated. So it's no longer the sales issue. the government today knows that it's a chronic systemic issue. So they don't go after salespeople individually, they go after management. So management has to be held accountable for coming clean. So that's one part. The other thing is that if it is possible, and sometimes it is easy to sell without bribing, most salespeople would rather not bribe. So if you want to flip it around, the reason the salespeople are bribing, it could be the case that they have found some difficulties that they do not know how to overcome and resort to bribing to overcome those obstacles. We're not condoning that behavior in such a way, but what management can do is to work with salespeople to find out how we can actually help salespeople overcome those challenges and not resort to bribing. So management has to be actively involved in setting up bribing. So what can management do? Number one, review distributor policies. Why distributors? If you're working in a foreign company, most of bribing is done through distributors. Why? Because foreign companies usually don't want to get your fingers dirty. You don't want to get hands dirty to be caught in the actual bribing. So what they do is you have distributors who will do the dirty job that you cannot do. Right? So those are distributors. And the normal definition of distributors is that distributors are supposed to help you grow your business, find new customers, new territories, and grow the business. There are, however, we know that there are some distributors who don't actually grow the business at all. The only job is when a salesperson finds a customer, and the customer says, well, I can buy from you, but if you need to give me some goodies, then I'll buy from you. Then the salesperson will go to the distributor, and the distributor will just so-called grease the wheels and do the things that the supplier cannot do with those customers. That's what a distributor does. What do we want to review in distributors? Well, one thing is to look into distributor practices. We know of a certain case where a company's distributor has got very high margins, that they pay for a very low price for the goods, for the products, and sell at high markup to end customers because the end customer price is a lot higher. Now, this practice in itself is not an issue, except that there are no conditions being applied or enforced in this case. Why? Normally, if you want to give your distributors high margins, a few things they need to do. They will need to commit to X amount of volume in a year. Two, they usually need to pay upfront. They need to stock up inventory, pay them cash, bring inventory, put it inside a warehouse, and then they could enjoy high levels of margins if they have made such a commitment. That's fair and square. But in our case, the distributor does not have any kind of commitment. It's more like an agent. Only when a customer has an order, the distributor buys from the principal supplier and then ships the products to the end customer and still have a huge amount of margin. And what this huge margin does is it can give margins for the distributor, not only to bribe the customer, but also to give kickbacks back to the salesperson as well. So it becomes a totally corrupted sales organization. So what we want to do is to stamp it out from the distribution if there are practices that are not very normal, not very common. It kind of looks kind of strange to you, then you probably want to investigate in it. We're not saying that anything that is not normal are corrupted, but it's definitely worth some level of investigation. Two, review business dining meetings, events, policies. Now, one of the key things that GSK has done was to have an annual party where we spend millions of dollars or millions of RMB on one annual party dinner, and that somehow raised eyebrows from different people. And the other thing also is a lot of such cases, such investigations were the result of whistleblowers. We don't know if the whistleblowers act on their own accord because they're unhappy with their employers, or have they been instigated by some government officials to actually blow the whistle against their previous employers. We don't know, and we are not going to guess what happened. But then again, if you have something that's overly lavish, overly extravagant, be aware that there could be whistleblowers in your company. Now, one of the key things that one of the key strategies that sometimes we want to build trust and rapport with customers is this. We will actually sometimes bring them for an overseas trip. Be careful with overseas trip as well. It has to have a reason behind it, right? You need to justify that why you need to fly that person to whatever place. It must not, for example, if my company HQ is in Singapore, which we were, and there is something that I can justify is I can only show my customer only in Singapore, not in China. It's not available here. I can't do it here. It can only be shown in Singapore. That's one criteria. And when the customer goes to Singapore, I cannot. Singapore is a very small country. I could not even bring them to Malaysia or Indonesia, which is just right next door, because it's not part of the business. So for business trips, be really, really careful on those practices. 3, we may want to have some cross monitoring, and this is something that we learned from a book called 5 Dysfunctions of High Performance Teams. And one of the key things that are required is, do you really have team accountability? Now, accountability not so much not just as an individual, have you done your job, but you also, as a team member, you need to be accountable for your other team members' performance as well. That's a team concept. Now, what we want to do is to apply that into bribery or corruption issues as well. If on your team you found someone else who is giving bribes or doing something that is illegal, that are outside of rules, there are 2 things you can do. 1, tell them in their face that they've done something wrong. 2, report to the boss, to the direct manager. Why would we do that? Sometimes it may be perceived, especially in Asian cultures, that you're ratting, you're backstabbing on your teammates. But here it is. It is a responsibility for the entire team to keep the team clean. Now, we also need to make sure that the certain context, certain rules are in place. We don't want it to degenerate into all kinds of backstabbing and ratting kind of exercise throughout the company. The purpose of doing so is to make sure that anyone who flouts the rule, there will be someone watching over you and calling out to you. That's one part of the story. The other part is we definitely don't want it to make it too punitive on the outset. If, let's say, I found my colleague giving bribes, and I reported to my manager is not going to punish my colleague, at least not just yet. My manager is going to view it that my colleague has got difficulty in selling. That's why he or she resort to such ways. My manager is going to give some counseling, coaching, and guidance, support on how such things can be stopped and the alternative ways without bribing can be implemented. We want to go on a supportive way rather than punitive. And the reason for doing this is simple. Bribery in sales, in most cases, is not a one-off thing. It's not like one person who's bad and who's after sales targets and bribe. It's usually chronic. It's usually organization-wide. It's a chronic problem. Everybody faces it. No one knows exactly how to deal with it. In a way, the salespeople are victims of the whole situation as well. So what we want to do is not to punish people who are caught in the whole process. We want to give support. We want to give salespeople a chance of doing things to change things around so that they don't have to bribe. That's what we want to start off with. So this is why I say we want to cross-monitor, hold one another accountable within rules, within a controlled environment, and stamp out bribing by giving mutual support. What management can do, provide training. Again, as mentioned earlier on, the conflict between compliance and sales is that compliance says you cannot do this, you cannot bribe. Sales says, what else can we do? There is no clear solution. So what management can do is to provide the right training. How to deal in a case where the customer is asking for a bribe. The customer is asking for some kind of weird favors or illegal favors, including sexual favors. How do you deal with those situations without losing the business? And we will talk about it later. There are some ways that salespeople can handle it. And that is the kind of training that is required, and that's what management can give to support. 2 is management can also educate our salespeople why it is a bad idea to bribe. We mentioned earlier bribing is costly. Bribing is bad for business even when it's legal. So when it's illegal, the implications, negative implications, is going to be bigger. So management needs to think about how to inculcate this idea into everybody. So 2 kinds of training: skills and attitude. Last but not least, hire the right salespeople. We found that if a salesperson started out in a company that does not give bribe, that are strict about how they sell, and strict about how the entertainment and everything else is done in a print and proper way, these are salespeople who are likely to find ways to sell without bribing, either by training or just to survive. They will find ways to do that, and they will get accustomed to selling without bribing. On the other hand, if you hire salespeople who's been working in companies that has been using different means of bribing or under-the-table methods to win sales, then they are going to bring those practices into your company. So hire the right people with the right skill sets, with the right mindsets with regards to bribing issues as well. It's one thing to hire experienced salespeople. It's another thing to hire experienced salespeople that has the experience to sell without bribing. If you hire experienced salespeople that has experience using bribes a lot, then that is very detrimental to the whole bribery issues in the entire company. Now, the third part will be what salespeople can do. We mentioned about what management. It's not just a management problem, it's also a salesperson problem. So this is some tips on how we can actually overcome the bribery issue. The first one is just say no. Just say, look for our customer. Just tell the customer, sorry, we can't do business with you. We're going to sell to someone else. Now this may sound harsh. This may sound as if like, no, there'll be salespeople and there'll be companies, even senior management will say that if we were to do that, we will be out of business. If we were to do that, then no one's going to buy from us. But if you were to take one step backwards and think about it, selling is also about qualifying the right kind of customer. Now, if you're not talking about bribing, we're talking about something else. If you're talking about, let's assuming I'm a car buyer, you're a car salesman, and I went to your car showroom and looked at a nice car, went for a test drive, liked the car. I asked for the right color, you got the right color, I asked for the right configuration, you got all the configuration. Then I asked the final question. I will buy the car if you can make it fly. 如果这辆车能飞，我就买。Right? If I would say, if I buy a car, if you can make it fly, what's the response? They're going to say no, because there's no way, even if you want to, you won't be able to make the car fly. Period. In sales, in any kind of sales, whether it's related to bribery or not, there will be customers whose needs that we won't be able to fulfill. There will be some customers whose demands that it's not within our scope. We will serve certain kinds of customers, but not all kinds of customers. It's always about finding the right kind of customers. Bribing, it's also part of the factor in terms of your qualifying of customers. If this customer only buy if you bribe them, then they are not your qualified customer in the first place. Okay, so qualified customers, you can sell to different customers. Now, what if you don't want to sell to a different customer? What if this is a really good customer and you find that it's only some individuals within the customer that is looking for a kickback? Well, you can actually approach a different contact person. Now, a lot of salespeople in China, what they do is to sell only to one contact person, and that is wrong. In most sales situations, especially for B2B, business-to-business sales situations, you usually need to be in contact 3 to 5 different contact people before closing the sale. Those contact people could be the decision maker, they could be the ones that look at the technical aspects, they could be the one that looks at the financial aspects, they could be an end user, they could be some supporters who like you, they could also be some detractors who hate you. But you need to get in touch with a few people, about 3 to 5 in general, before you actually can get the sale. So if you only sell to one person, regardless whether it's bribery or not, is dangerous. Why? Because that person can leave the company, that person can get a promotion or demotion, transferred outwards, not in charge of the project. Anything could happen to that person. So it's a good idea to talk to a few other people rather than to just sell to one. So if that person is really blocking away and asking for, being really anal about asking a bribe, talk to someone else. And there are different ways to how you can do that, which we'll talk about later. We can also divert the personal issue to the business issue. Now, again, in terms of customer corruption, there are two kinds of corrupted customers. One is that they will get a bribe regardless what happens. They will get a bribe at the expense of their company. I just want money. I don't care about my company. I just want money. That's one type. The other type is they will get a bribe if the company's interests are covered first. And then if there's some leftover, I would like to have some extra bonus since I did such a great work. So that is more like a by the way, 顺手牵羊 kind of bribery corruption cases, which is again more than the former. So if you're dealing with customers who say, we have company needs and we have personal needs, and if I were to get you into a company, how much are you giving me in terms of goodies? What I can do is to refocus on business issue. I can tell them that, you know what, if whatever we provide you does not meet your company's needs, doesn't meet your business needs or technical needs, then whatever discussion on personal issues is, it's fluff, it's pointless. Is it okay that we talk about business issues first and put personal issues aside? Right, we'll refocus it and talk about business issues. That's one way to divert the attention. Also, giving kickback, sometimes it's similar to drinking in business. Now in China, in Asia, right, especially in China, if you want to be an industrial product salesperson, perhaps one of the most important criteria in selling industrial products is it's not about selling skills. It's sometimes the ability to hold your liquor. How much can you drink? 你的酒量如何? Right, so this could be it. And is it possible to sell industrial products in China without drinking? Actually, it is. It really depends how you do it. And by the way, we're not saying that drinking equals bribery. Just using some parallels that there are similarities in drinking and similarities in bribery. If in drinking, let's look at drinking first. If in drinking, you say on the outside, at the real beginning, that you are allergic to alcohol. You don't even drink beer. You don't touch anything alcohol. Even the wet tissues, the wet 湿纸巾, which might have alcohol in there. You don't even use wet tissues. Right? You're really allergic to alcohol. And tell that to the outset to the customers. The customers may not really like you, but at least they understand you. Right? They may not really find that you are really a nice buddy, but they understand that you are allergic, you don't take alcohol. Same thing for bribing. If on the outset you give hints, you ask customers, how much do you want? Do you want some goodies? What is it you want? Then you are setting the stage for people to expect you to give them bribes. If from the outset that you don't give them any hint, any indication that you are bribing, then they don't expect bribes from you. They may not like it, but they will understand you. Same thing as drinking. Drinking, the moment you start with beer, beer may go to wine. Red wine. And red wine may go to 白酒, white rice wine. Right? And it goes on and on. There's no end, because that's what people expect you to do. When you give, same as bribing, when you give hints that you can consider bribing, the audience, customer may think that, okay, you can give me small amounts, and in the future you can give me bigger amounts because it's expected. If you give once, people expect you to give every single time. So that's the expectations that we need to manage. We don't want customers to have the expectations that we are easy on the bribing part. Like I said, they may not like it, but at least they will understand it. And the moment you start to give, people expect you to continue to give all the time, every time. Also understanding China-Asian sales culture. In China and Asia, we like to eat, we like to drink, and we like to give gifts. It's part of the culture here. But again, the distinction between eating, drinking, and giving versus corruption or bribing. Two different issues. Why we like to eat, drink, and give gifts in Asia or China? Simple reason. In the West, people tend to think about things as in rule-based. If a supplier is unhappy with the customer, supplier may sue the customer. Customer unhappy with supplier, customer sues the supplier. Everything they go by law, right? So that's that is what's in the West. And in the West, what's going to happen is, especially in America, what's going to happen is if I, as a supplier, I sue my customer because of product A, I can still do business with the same customer for product B. That was what happened, especially in the IT world in the US. We heard about it. There was outstanding law cases, court cases, legal cases between Microsoft and Apple many years back. They're still doing business. They're suing each other. They're still doing business. Apple suing Google. They're still doing business, and so on. So this is a practice in the West. In the East, however, we don't want to go to court. If we ever go to court, that's the end of our business relationship. Right? So this is a distinction between East and West. So if you don't want to go to court, what it means is that we definitely will want to make sure that whoever we deal business with, we can trust the other person. And by trust, it's not just you being honest and truthful. By trust, customers expect salespeople to take care of them, take care of the customers if things were to go wrong. That's a basic trust. If the delivery was late, if there were problems with quality, if my boss has a additional requirement that is not too much, can you help me? That is outside of contract. It's a kind of relation that is mutually expected in Asia. And to do that, sometimes it's better to bring people to an informal environment, like a restaurant or a cafe or whatever it is. You can talk about lunch, you can talk over coffee, and if you want to have a few drinks, which is part of dinner anyway, that's all fine. It's nothing to do with bribery. It's all about building mutual trust, getting mutual information, harnessing the relationship. Right? So that's a distinction we need to make. That there is a huge difference between bribing and just wine and dine and regular wine and dine. And what it means also is that if you really want to build relationship through wining and dining, it doesn't have to be lavish. It's the thought that matters, not the expenses. So it's sometimes a simple meal that it can bring people out. Doesn't have to be expensive. Doesn't have to be posh. It's just a normal meal, just a normal business lunch that doesn't cost really that much money. Okay, so these are things that we need, as long as we understand we're in the right context. There's no issue about operating it. The other thing is this: customers don't always buy from someone they like, but they do always buy from someone they trust. And by trust, there are two kinds of trust. Trust in your integrity, which includes how honest you are, how truthful you are. It includes, as was mentioned, do you really have the customer's interest at heart? That's part of integrity. And trust in your ability. Can you deliver? Can you deliver what is promised? Can you deliver to the job specifications? So if I were to like you a lot, you're my buddy, but your company, your solution doesn't match mine, I can't buy from you. Right? It's nothing personal. It's not because I don't like you, but I can't trust your solution. Right? It's a different thing. So customers buy from people they trust in terms of both integrity and as well as ability. Now, a lot of Chinese salespeople made a mistake by thinking that they need to please their customer. They put themselves one level below the customers, as if they need the customer to do them a favor, to give business to them. It's like 求客, begging the customer for business. You don't do that. Why? If you do that, it gives customer the impression that you go all the way to please me like a slave. Alright, 奴性很强, like a slave. Is it because you are lacking in some abilities? That's why you need to do that? Right? It actually reduces the trust in your abilities if you want to please too much. Again, we are all for taking good care of the customer. We are all for showing care and concern for the customer, being polite and having great service for the customer. That's great, but you don't have to bend over backwards and please the customer just for the sake of pleasing the customer. Also, this is a survey done internationally. It's a study that is spanning 14 years by a company called HR Challenge. 14 years interviewing something like 80,000 customer organizations all around the world. And the question for this part is, they asked, is what makes you choose to buy from a specific customer? The answer that came back was, the question was, ask customers what makes you buy? What constitutes to your decision to buy from a certain seller? The answer that came back was that the reason we bought was because of the ability and the effectiveness of the salesperson. 39% of the time it's a salesperson. It's a single biggest factor, bigger than product quality, pricing, or every other thing. The salesperson is the biggest criteria why customers buy from you. So if the salesperson is effective enough, if the salesperson can actually provide the right solution, give the right advice to the customer, customers actually buy because of the salesperson, and definitely not because the customer has got some goodies in return. So if you and when you want to give the gifts or entertain, it's the thought, not the price of the gift that matters. It's how you put the thought in the whole process. And here's a story in the US, and I'm sure that Chinese salespeople can definitely do one better. This story in the US where there's this guy who sells envelopes. Right, the guy is called Harvey Mackay. Right, so he's now a motivational speaker as well. His company sells envelopes, right? And envelopes basically are a commodity. There's no there's no technology in it. There's nothing complex, but it's a pure commodity. Your envelope is more or less the same as any other envelope, and everybody buys that price, right? So it's a very highly competitive business. There's no way to talk really about business issues. There are none. It's just envelopes, stationary envelopes. Now, he's been following this customer for a very long time, and for his customers, he actually kept records on when the customer's birthday is, when his wife's birthday is, the customer's wife's birthday is, who are the kids and so on, what they like and so on. So he actually did a lot of homework about the customer. And one fine day, this particular customer, which hasn't given Harvey this business, the son of the customer had a car accident and broke his leg and was hospitalized. Right? There's no life danger, but was hospitalized and broke a leg, and was custard and all that. Harvey Mackay found that the son of the customer is a fan of a certain baseball star. Okay, that was information that was collected earlier. So what it did, and this could be a gray area, but just a story anyway about knowing what a customer wants. What it did was to go to the baseball club where the baseball star was playing at, buy the whole baseball kit, the helmets, the bats, the suits, everything else, and get the baseball star to autograph on it and send it to the ward that the child is staying. Right? When you do that, you get business. I mean, again, it's great. Some companies may allow that, some may not. But in a way, if you want to give a gift, the point is, it's not about, is it really that expensive to buy the whole baseball kit and get a baseball star to autograph? Don't think so. It's not really a pricey, lavish, extravagant thing. It's about the thought. Right? So it's not about the price of a gift. It's not a gift itself. It's a thought that matters, not a gift. If you want to give something that is thoughtful, that's something that the customer really wants. And for the customer, what they want, really find out what they want, not what you think they want. And again, we found a case where we have salespeople who call them customer. The customer is newly married in his late 20s, just got married, and the wife is expecting the child. They just got an apartment and it's got a huge mortgage to pay for. So in a way, you can come to objectively a conclusion that the customer personally is financially strapped. Now, the salesperson thinks that that customer, because he's financially strapped, he needs money, right? But he tried to suggest a bribe, the customer rejects it, and from then on refused to buy from that salesperson, right? And then what is found is that that customer doesn't feel nice, doesn't feel okay, comfortable with accepting a bribe, even though he needs money, even though financially he's strapped. So it doesn't really mean that because I'm broke, I need to be bribed, or I will accept bribe. It doesn't really mean that way. And the last part is how management and salespeople can work together to craft a sales strategy without bribing. So it's management, it's sales, and it's management plus sales coming together. So the first thing to think about is expect the road to be rough. Like I mentioned earlier, you may lose some customers because they will not work with you unless you bribe them. You may lose some of your salespeople because they think that if they're not allowed to bribe, there's no way they can sell. They may leave you. You may even lose some of the top salespeople. You may lose some of the distributors because you found that they are doing the things that they are not supposed to do anyway. Right. So expect the road to be rough, especially in the initial phase. So there are various things you need to do. One is to focus on attitude for both management as well as for salespeople. There are two kinds of attitude. One is a problem solver's attitude. The other one is a problem bringer's attitude. Which one is yours? Problem solver's attitude is whereby you see a problem, you find ways to try to solve it. It doesn't mean that you have the answer to all problems. It doesn't mean you have all the solutions. It just means that your attitude is something that you want to be proactive to try to solve problems, even though you may not be able to solve it. Problem bringers, on the other hand, are the ones that will complain about a problem and do nothing about it. So for both management and salespeople, we need to be more of a problem-solving kind of attitude. It's a tough thing, but let's work at it. We may not have a full solution, but let's look at it one piece at a time, and eventually we may solve it after some time. So to craft that, one is to, as mentioned, be prepared for initial slow sales, both for your salespeople. They may lose in terms of bonuses and commissions, and for HQ, because everybody is expecting China to produce a lot of shortfall in sales. So you got to be prepared and got to communicate with that well across the board. You need to work with salespeople to overcome challenges. You need to give support, like training, or commit to resources. And support sometimes can be very simple. We mentioned earlier on, if there is a specific person in the customer's organization that's asking you for a bribe, you talk to someone else. How do you then talk to someone else? Well, one way is to say, as a salesperson, I tell the customer, my boss would like to have dinner with your boss, or my boss would like to meet up with your boss. Hey, there's another person, that person's boss, who may not be as corrupted. There could be a case that that person is also corrupted, but then again, that is you have one more surviving chance of that person being less corrupted or not corrupted. That's one way. The other thing that we mentioned here, commit more resources to support the customers. What kind of resources? If you can commit to more technical support people. Why technical support people? Especially if you sell technical products. If you're a salesperson of a technical product company, you go to the customer and you say that, I got this and this product, I'd like to show you, I'd like to find out if you've got needs. The customer is likely to say, no, we're happy with our current supplier, we don't need you, thank you, go off. That could be the case. But on the other hand, if you tell the customer, saying that, well, I'm a salesperson for this company, but I'd like to bring our technical support guys to come over to you and find out what are the ways that we can optimize your technical workflow, processes, equipment, and so on, and see how you can improve things for free. Right? If you do that, your chances of getting the door wide open up is a lot greater. And not only that, now you're not only talking to one person, the customer's group, your technical guys could be talking to the technical guys who are, again, less likely to be corrupted and asking you for a bribe. So these are the things that, additional things that management can do to support salespeople and work as a team. The key thing is that as long as we are both in the right trusting each other and having the right common goal, that is to sell without bribing. Hey, management and salespeople, let's not blame one another about why is it so tough to crack into a certain customer. Let's work together and find ways and find solutions how best we can actually provide it to the customer, or to win this customer without bribing. So in closing, this is one line of a quote from Sun Tzu, Sun Tzu. And what it means is that if you can walk 1,000 miles without feeling tired, you win. And in the case of bribing, it's the same thing. It's tough already trying to meet sales targets, bribing or not. It's going to be a much tougher journey to sell and meet targets without bribing, without any form of bribing. It's going to be a lot tougher. But hey, if it's tough, it can be bad news, for sure, because it's tough. It can also be good news. Why? Because it's so tough, a lot of other salespeople, a lot of other competitors may just give up. And when your competition has given up, you have less competitors and you are all alone, you may actually keep and win customers easier. Right? So if you are able to persevere and strike it out and going through the initial rough ride and work together as a team, hold each other accountable, focus on your common goal, you may win as an organization without bribing. And why is it that we focus on such a thing for now? On two counts. One, the China today is different from the China of yesterday. China this year definitely is different from the China of last year. What has been being condoned or being accepted widely as a practice in many, many industries is now seen to be illegal, and the government is taking action. So it makes sense to find ways to clean up your act before you are being investigated next. So it makes perfect legal sense. It also makes sense, as I mentioned earlier on, it is bad for business to bribe. It's costly, it's bad for a brand, and it doesn't do you any favors by differentiating you in any way. The third thing is also bribing, since it's been accepted, condoned in this country, in this part of the world for so long, it could be a chronic practice in the organization. So we are not going to go after individuals who flout the rules and fire them. If you do so, you may need to fire the entire sales force. And we're not going to do that. What we want to do is to see things as from a more supportive point of view. We want to see things that it is because our salespeople do not know how to get around things without bribing. That's why they have to resort to bribing. We give them that benefit of doubt and try to work together and seek better solutions. If they refuse to change, then, well, we can take other actions later on. If they refuse to change, to not sell without bribing, they also could have the same issues in terms of refusing to change to be able to improve themselves to be a better salesperson. It's the same issue as well. They're not coachable. So, we want to see things from a more supportive point of view. We want to be firm. We want to stand on where we are, but at the same time, we also want people to buy-in across the board that we can actually do this as a team. So with that, ends the presentation.